Hi, everyone. Welcome back. My name is Erin, and I'm joined by my friend Jen, and we are Life Beyond the Scale with Jen and Erin. This is our second episode, so we're so glad if you are returning. Welcome back. Our podcast is here to prove that life after 40 isn't a slowdown, it's a new chapter full of strength, style, and self discovery. Today, we are talking about feed your feelings, not your face. A little cheeky, Jen, but I like it. So tell me more about that.
Yeah, I think the idea behind that really comes from the fact that in today's modern world, we are living in a lot of high emotional states. And what we're doing then is trying to distract ourselves from that. And so we often maybe turn to food. For some of our listeners, maybe food's not the issue, and we're turning to online shopping, having a glass of wine or more. Binge watching TV, whatever that might be. But I think today we're going to look at the food aspect of it and to try to really acknowledge what it is that our brain is associating with food, right? And so what feelings are we feeling? And then why are we turning to food to feed that feeling and numb it and distract ourselves instead of actually going into it to say, hey, this is what I'm feeling and this is how I want to overcome that feeling. So does that make
I
sense?
do, yeah, and I do think that the strategy that you're going to share with everybody, it's a three-step strategy. I think that it can be used for not just food, but any of the things that you mentioned above,
Absolutely.
as far as shopping, binge watching, any of that. So super excited to hear more about that. So tell us more.
Yeah. Okay. So think about the last time. We'll just use food today, right? I think a lot of our listeners are kind of stuck in this pattern where our brain is associating kind of this habit loop, right? Like we have an emotion or a trigger, some type of stimulus, then we do a behavior, and then we feel rewarded by it. So I
Yeah.
often stress eat. So I might feel stress and then I go grab some chips and then I like chips. And so that's my reward. And two or three times into feeling the stress, all of a sudden my brain takes over because our brain doesn't want us to be overwhelmed or stressed. And the brain's kind of like, sit back, Jen. We know what to do. We know where the chips are. And without a conscious decision, my body is walking into my kitchen, grabbing the chips, and then I'm eating them almost on basically autopilot, right? But
Hmm.
I'm really just using the chips to distract myself from whatever was going on that caused the stress in the first place. And then I want to blame the stress for me gaining weight or me having inflammation or me craving more junk. It becomes a vicious cycle where we are creating this association in the brain. And so today we want to try to interrupt that a little bit. And so it's a three-step framework. We're going to use Dr. Chatterjee's 3F framework. So step one is the first F is going to be for feel. So we just want to acknowledge what the feeling is, right? Because probably 9 out of 10 times it has nothing to do with hunger. It has nothing to do with needing a cocktail. It has nothing to do with needing a new blouse. It's just
Yeah.
the fact that I don't want to know or identify what I am feeling.
Or you're shooting to get that feeling that you get
Yes.
after it's really that you're trying to get that emotional feeling that you're going to feel after you do that action.
Right, that fleeting feeling, right? That
Very
reward
fleeting.
at the end
Mhm.
of the habit loop that like you shared in last week's episode, that feeling that only lasts 10 seconds or so, but we're kind of chasing the high of that. We're chasing that relief, we're chasing the pleasure of the chocolate, we're chasing the oh my gosh, I didn't have to think about that illness for 10 seconds. And so we
Yes.
want to just say what it is that I'm actually feeling instead of looking for that reward right off the bat.
Sure.
And that, and that
100%.
reward can just be kind of a not so healthy reward as well, right? It could be higher blood pressure, higher cholesterol, inflammation, joint pain, a migraine, on and on and on, X, Y, and Z. But in the moment, we kind of feel like that was a pleasureful thing that we were chasing.
I can honestly say that broccoli has never done it for me. That it is chocolate or cookies. That would be the one, it's
Right.
like if I'm going for it, those are my two.
Yeah,
for sure.
when I need a companion and I'm looking for food, celery is not anywhere on the list, right? And so we are
Nowhere.
always looking for that less healthy food, that less healthy behavior. That there's nothing wrong with that. But if we're trying to interrupt this stuck pattern that we keep catching ourselves in, that's what today's episode is about, right? And
Yeah.
so it's not about willpower. And we're going to use the term battery today. And we're going to kind of think of it as every morning when I wake up, I am given a full daily dose of battery. Kind of like maybe I left my phone on the charger overnight and I wake up and my phone's on 100%, right? But then
Mm.
as I'm using my phone and searching the internet or scrolling or whatever, that battery gets drained. Just like in real life, as soon as I step out the door or open my computer and start reading emails, uh, maybe going through the bills, in the mail, getting cut off on the side of the road by traffic or a detour, all of that is slowly taking away the battery, let alone getting in an argument with one of somebody in my household, one of the kids needing something that I'm not sure how to help. All of that is depleting my battery, and instead of
Mm.
recharging it, I start to feel like somehow I've failed because I'm in the kitchen, in the pantry, in the ice cream tub, whatever that might be. And so we want to kind of interrupt that framework and say, no, we're going to learn a new pattern and a new behavior today. And it's not about shame and guilt. It's not about even the food or the drink that we're turning to, but taking a second to really just break it down into 3 steps, turn inward, and really figure out how to take action. Inspiration without action doesn't lead to change. So today we want to look at how to make those changes. So today we really want to say, let's stop talking about changing and getting unstuck, and let's start looking inward and figuring out how exactly we can address this and protect ourselves from any unnecessary emotional strain.
I gotta say, I really like the analogy of the battery because I think we pay more attention to if our battery is taken care of on our phone. It's like, oh, don't forget, got to make sure we have enough juice to get us through the day. Oh, got to make sure we got to charge before we go to bed. Got to make sure that we pay so much attention to making sure that all of our electronics are rested and well ready to face the day, and then realizing as we progress through our day how much of the things that we are doing take away from our energy level and also take away from our battery level. So I really like that analogy, Jen. I think that's really good. And I love the fact that you're using that instead of willpower, because so many of us feel bad about ourselves because we think, well, I'm just strong enough. I can't stick with my goals. I don't do what I say I'm going to do, and therefore I feel guilty, I feel shameful, I feel bad, frustrated about myself, and then all of those feelings, just it's a vicious cycle. So then what do we do? Whatever behavior that is your choice, that you go to when you're having a bad day. So I really like that.
Yeah. So let me ask you, when is the last time that you turned to food instead of facing the feeling that you were, I guess, does that make
Mm-hmm.
sense?
Yes, just recently, we had leftover Hershey bars from s'mores from 4th of July. And, typically I would have sent them home with my daughter and her boyfriend. I
Mm.
don't know why I didn't do it, but I didn't. And they were still on the counter. In fact, there's still one downstairs that needs to go.
Yeah.
But what happened was I am in the middle of doing a renovation, and the renovation is getting more and more complicated. And I have not, the cost has gone up, everything, and I feel a bit out of control, a little out of sorts. And
Mm.
I was feeling very stressed about the fact that I felt like I couldn't get this taken care of. I didn't know, I still don't know exactly how bad's going to be the final cost of this. And so I was feeling stressed, and I ripped open a Hershey bar and started eating it, and then thought to myself, what are you doing? You know better. This Hershey bar isn't going to give you the answers of when the contractor's coming back and how much this is going to end up being. Put the candy bar down. And I did end up sharing it with my husband
Hey,
and making him eat half of it. Like, here, stop me from myself. And he's like, oh, yeah, good. Share it with me.
Share it.
Thanks.
Share it.
Yeah.
Well, and either way, like that
Share it
is
with
a
me.
win. And there's nothing wrong with turning to chocolate. But I think that you really kind of undercovered that the actual emotion behind this had nothing to do with hunger, but lack of control. Right.
100%. Feeling out of control and feeling frustrated and looking for that feeling of like a relief. And I think for me with chocolate, that dopamine hit to the brain is that like little bit of relief that I feel. And then I inevitably feel bad about myself afterwards. So I've learned that it's not the answer, but it is an old habit that does rear its head every once in a while.
And in actuality, we're strengthening a habit that's not serving us.
Yes.
Right. And so the first F of our 3-part framework is to feel. And so just to pause long enough, we're going to interrupt this habit loop that we've created with feeling out of control, going to chocolate, dopamine hit. Wow, I love chocolate. And then it starts with the next shoot. I shouldn't have done that. Well, now I feel mad at myself. Why would I do that? I'm such a disappointment. And so we're going to stop, hit pause, and start to interrupt this brain association with feeling out of control means I should go grab some chocolate. And so the first thing is for you just to pause and acknowledge I'm feeling out of control. Now,
Yes.
maybe you only do that one time and you're ready to move on to step 2. Or maybe you're going to keep eating chocolate for the next month or until this renovation is done. But every time you turn to food, wine, shopping, whatever that vice is for you in the moment, I want you to just take a minute and pause and identify the feeling.
Yes.
All right. And then we're
Mm-hmm.
going to move on. Once you feel like, okay, I got this. I am not hungry. I am blank. I am lonely. I am bored. I am happy. I am angry. I am feeling loved. Whatever that feeling is, then we're ready for step 2. And the second F is feed. And so this is where we get the name of this week's podcast of feed the feeling. And so now, the next time I'm grabbing chips, the next time you're grabbing chocolate, we need to physically say, or at least mentally think, I am turning to chocolate to feel in control. I am turning
Yes.
to ice cream to reduce my stress. I am hoping that chocolate makes me feel less stressed right now so that we can kind of figure out what it is that why we're turning to that food and how we're kind of disrespecting that emotion by thinking that food is going to fix it, right?
Yeah.
Because it's easy to stay on the surface because digging deep means that I no longer get to blame that situation, that person, that food, that guy in traffic, that faulty
Yeah.
toilet or pipes or whatever, right? Like now I got to look at me and that feels uncomfortable.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. So yeah, I mean that feeling of sitting with it, I think is hard for a lot of people, including myself. It's just it doesn't feel comfortable. And it's usually that you are adding yet another layer of emotion on top of probably some other emotions that are overflowing over the edge and getting messy and feeling out of control.
And all of these feelings are shaping our actions of what we're going to do next or for the rest of the
Mm,
day. Right.
yeah.
And they're using up part of that battery, probably in a place that should be giving us safety and a reboot and a power charge, like our home. And instead, we're letting that safe place now also drain our battery. And so now we're living in this heightened stress because I have nowhere to go that makes me feel in control or powerful or rested.
Sure.
Right. So this
Yeah.
again could take some time and everybody is different and every situation is different. And maybe it's going to be after the fact that I'm like, shoot, I was using that food today to, bring myself a little joy. But as soon
Mm,
as we feel like we're ready to move on to that third F, that third part of the framework of reframing that brain, it's going to find is F for find. We're going to find the alternative. So you mentioned a strategy about the next time or this last Hershey bar that's in the house, giving this away to your daughter. So that is a strategy, but does that help you feel in control?
Yes and no. I think in the moment of like sending it off, if I had been on top of my feet and thinking at the moment, hey, put this in with the leftovers, yeah, I would have felt in control. Something that I could do to feel more in control, take myself out of the environment. Usually that seems to be wherever I am taking a look around, and it's like, is it the room? Is it the person? Is it what I'm doing at that particular moment, taking myself out and, maybe just going outside, watering the garden, going for a walk, taking the dog for a walk, seeing how happy she is, gets my mind off of whatever I'm thinking about. Um, and often, sometimes I think there's those nighttime activities that I think about, but then I don't allow myself to do. Like, I just think, oh, I don't have enough time for that. So, maybe digging a little bit deeper and getting more creative.
Right. And really making sure that whatever we're finding to do is feeding that emotion, right? So that we
Mhm.
don't continue to feed our face. So for example, one
Sure.
of my coaching clients talked about eating out of anger, frustration at work, anger with coworkers or with leadership. And so she decided to keep her hands busy in the evening, right? Instead of turning to food, she'll keep her hands busy and she'll learn how to crochet. So that's a nice
Cool.
strategy, except crocheting isn't feeding the anger or the frustration. In some ways, it's actually intensifying it because she doesn't know how to crochet yet. And so there's still a lot of
Interesting.
challenges, and it's adding a little bit, another layer unintentionally of another frustration. Right? Every time
I
she
can see that.
misses a loop or misses a step and has to undo that strand, all of a sudden we're back into that circle of emotional distress, right? And so
Yeah.
instead to pause and be like, this is a helpful tool, but if I'm angry, that's not the thing, right? If I need to keep my
Yeah.
hands busy and that's what I'm eating for, then crocheting works. If I'm trying to be calm and happy and joyful, or whatever the opposite of anger is, maybe that's where I need to scream at the top of my lungs, punch my son's punching bag, um, laugh, jump up and down, dance, listen to some great music from the 80s and 90s. Like, I don't know, but going back to feeding that feeling and not just adding another layer to it.
So I think what you're saying is it's really important to examine what activity is that you've chosen, and does it really give you what you need for that particular emotion. So because it's like we can think of like, oh, I should just be doing those healthy behaviors. Well, yeah, that's all fine and good, but maybe that's not exactly what's going to give you what you need to feed that particular feeling and emotion. So interesting, very interesting. Because I was thinking about taking up crocheting too. And I believe I would have the same emotion of being just a little ticked off that I didn't do it perfectly. And then that would be, that would just be wiping it all out. So interesting. Cool.
and, and probably the reality is every day will be different, and every strategy could be different. It might take a few different strategies to figure out, how is my body responding to this? Do I feel that tension release? Do I feel that joy? Am I getting that dopamine hit that the chocolate gave you?
Yeah. I think it's really important what you mentioned, because I think we try something and it doesn't work. And we think, oh, it's me. Sometimes just one thing doesn't work and that we need to keep trying something else. So that's interesting. Good point.
Right? Because in the past, it seems like we keep trying something that's not working. If eating the chocolate or the ice cream or whatever, the chips, is still causing me to stay in this habit loop of eating because I'm feeling stressed, then nothing has changed, right? And so then we go back to that quote, inspiration without action doesn't lead to change. If I'm ready to make a change, I might have to get comfortable feeling uncomfortable and dig a little deeper and figure out what it is that I'm trying to do, but start to practice and develop the skills of looking inward, right? It's not going to be easy, right? We're not going to like feeling uncomfortable. We're not going to like having to look inward and seeing what I have control over. But instead, we're going to create this gap of breaking apart the stimulus and the reward, develop some self awareness, which is going to lead to change, right? And it's going to protect us from these unnecessary emotional strains.
I like that you mentioned that it's usually not a one and done situation, that sometimes we have to keep trying something different in order to find what works for us. And what works in one situation doesn't necessarily work in another. And I think that's a valuable reminder to all of us out there who are trying to figure out how do we manage these feelings.
Yeah. And practicing this emotional hygiene is going way beyond just positive thinking, regain control, and how we respond helps us to support our health goals, right? And so we
Yeah.
would love to
And I
hear, how are you supporting your health goals?
Oh, yes, we would like to hear, what is it that you're doing out there? What are some of the emotions and how do you manage that? We'd love to have you put it in the comments, because we all get ideas from one another. Some things will work, some things work in our 20s, our 30s, our 40s, and now our 50s. And so we're always looking for inspiration. We're always looking for something to possibly try because sometimes we get stuck in a rut and we need new ideas. So we would love it, the audience, if they could, share with us your ideas because we definitely learn from one another. Thank you so much for sticking with us this long. If we could ask one last favor, if you could give us a thumbs up, a comment, or subscribe to the channel. If you click on the show's title and click more, you will find the show notes and you will see where Jen's coaching information is. Until next week, we'll see you then. Take care. Bye.